All right, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to CCIG and FRSecure's cybersecurity discussion. We know that right now, cybersecurity is top of mind for everybody, both professionally and personally. We read about it every day. For many of us now, every time you pull your phone out, you're told that some of your passwords have been breached, and you probably need to check those out. So, it's one thing personally, it's another thing when you're trying to protect your business. And my name is JB Richardson. I'm the Chief Operating Officer here at CCIG. And one of the things I'm responsible for is doing our best to keep us safe. And so when Mike Welch, our IT leader, and I started thinking about how to get ahead of this, we talked to a handful of different cyber providers. And much like many of you, sort of where do I start? Well, this seems huge. Who could help me? So we interviewed a half dozen firms, really trying to learn how do we protect our business? How do we get ahead of this? We don't have a team of cyber experts internally. And so when we met with the FRSecure team, we knew immediately that they would be incredibly helpful to us. And first, it was the strength of their team. We just got a sense that there was real depth. The second is their approach. So the assessment they will help you do at your firm is second to none. They go deep, they walk through it step by step, but more importantly afterwards, and you're going to hear about this today from the president of FRSecure, John, they'll talk about how they share that information with you. And much like a credit report, what makes FRSecure so unique is that the way they present it back to you is in a way that it's very easy to understand. You know where your risks are, you know where you're doing well, they give you a score, and then ultimately a roadmap that's broken out by quarter to know how to get ahead of this and make sure you can keep your firm safe and secure. So we've had a really strong relationship with them. We're going to actually share some of that today. Mike Welch is going to come up and talk to John about that process. We've also built a case study that we'll share after this presentation to really help all of you understand what the process looks like. But I would say overall, as a user of the experience, it was incredibly seamless. And we're excited to share that with all of our clients, all of our prospects, so that you can get that assessment taken care of and you know exactly how to navigate the risk inside of your business. So with me today is Mike Birch. He's one of our sales leaders. Mike, why don't you talk a little bit about why this is important in your mind to our clients and how you're approaching this?
Yeah, thanks, JB. Thank you all for coming. Really appreciate you being here. I am one of the leaders on the property casualty and employee benefits side, and we had the luxury of waking up every single day trying to differentiate ourselves from other brokers and advisors. One of those ways is partnering with the FRs of the world. So Drew, who leads the team, the sales team at FRSecure, he and I were just having some wine a few months back and said, well, what if we got you in front of our clients and prospects to show you these valuable penetration testing and assessments and all of that stuff? Great idea. So hence we're here today. So thank you again for being here. But we want just to be a voice for our clients, constantly looking for ways to better their program, protecting their people and their assets. And this is one of the ways we do that. So thank you again. Want to introduce John, the president of FRSecure. I think we're going to have a fun ride this afternoon. I'm sure he'll want it interactive, so please just interject as you see fit. Otherwise, let's welcome John.
All right. Thank you, brother. Yeah. Appreciate it. How y'all doing? All right. Well, hey, thanks for having me here. I really appreciate it. Should I grab a mic? Should I? Sometimes I yell, and my wife yells it back at me, but I'll just speak softly and dulcetly into the mic, and we'll be fine. All right, so how many people here have ever heard of FRSecure? Yeah, see, usual suspects. All right. How many people here have ever done a security assessment? One, yeah, okay. How many people have ever gone through a breach? Personally or otherwise? How'd it feel? Invasive. Icky is a word I hear a lot, right? Kind of sucked. Personally, it feels like an invasion of privacy, right? From a business perspective, it sometimes feels a little bit out of control, right? You ever get that question like, well, what do we do if we had an incident? Like, what does that look like? What's the scenario? Right? How do you recover from that? How bad would it be? And so security people like me like to come up and tell you all the horrible things that happen out there in the industry and scare the crap out of you so you buy more of my stuff, right? But ultimately, I want to demystify it today, and I'll start out by saying, as often as you hear about these big scale breaches, these things that bring companies to their knees and put them out of business, it really doesn't happen as often as you think it does. It really doesn't, right? But when it happens, it can be pretty impactful. So we just want to manage to that. We just want to kind of act appropriately and make sure that we're at least not low-hanging fruit. I mean, can we get on board with that? Does that make sense? All right, so let's try that. So I have 3 real-world incidents, and these incidents come from my incident response team at FRSecure. These are a team of about a dozen guys and gals who sit around and wait for the phone to ring, and people that go, oh my gosh, I've been ransomwared, or oh my gosh, I have some attacker on my network, or I can't access my systems, or all is lost, whatever it is. These are exactly the people you work with when this kind of thing happens, right? So every once in a while I go and talk to them and say, hey, you got any fun stories? You got anything that I can share with people and, maybe have a laugh or two, or maybe cry a little bit, or, whatever, and just, demystify, like, this is what happens in these things. And we're not going to get super technical today. I mean, I know a couple IT people in the room, but I'm assuming most of us aren't. I hope not. I'm not. So if you're looking for like super technical attack chain stuff, I can, maybe hook you up, but it ain't going to be today. All right. So I want to start with this a little bit. So mental health, very important at FRSecure, very important, period. Okay, and I want to let you know that, let me look at the room here, about a little less than half of us, so about this side of the room, statistically, is going to have some kind of mental health crisis in their lifetime. And only about half of that group is actually going to seek any kind of help for it, for whatever reason. There's a stigma to it. We don't know where to go get help. We don't recognize what's going on in our own lives. We don't know how to recognize it in other people. So I want to bring this to attention because we did lose Robbie to this. He was a team member. We miss him. We miss him greatly. And everywhere I go, I'm just like, it's okay to not be okay. Here's some resources that might help you. At FRSecure, we've gone through the mental health first aid training, it's called, so that link at the top. And that's not how to diagnose. That's not training you to be a medical professional. But if you happen to be walking through an airport and somebody's having an episode, a panic attack or something, how would you recognize that? How would you help them? What are you supposed to do? What are you supposed to say? If a family member is just maybe feeling a little down, how do you broach that subject? How do you let them know that they have some support? So as organizations, as individuals, you can go get that kind of training. They have some free training. They have some paid training that's a little more facilitated. We also have SAMHSA. We have the Mental Health Hackers, which is a great organization, especially for technical people who tend to be lonely behind screens all day. They need somebody who identifies with that lifestyle. So if somebody in your life is in that space, and then of course we have the National Suicide Prevention Hotline, which I think they're actually changing to a 3-digit. They're making it 988. So you can just call 988 and get that help. It's a very valuable service. So I just wanted to raise awareness on this and let you know if you are going through anything personally, if this struck a chord with you, you're not sure where to start, come talk to me afterwards. I'd love to talk to you about this and just let you know that you have support, you have somebody in your corner, and we can get you back on track. All right, so FRSecure, our entire existence is predicated on the idea that the security industry is very broken, right? If I asked everybody in this room what a penetration test is, I'd probably get 11 answers, right? Nobody can agree on anything. We're all speaking this a different language, right? So we're on a mission to fix this. There's a lot of stuff going on out there, a lot of money grab, a lot of icky, ugly stuff. We're just trying to be the good guys. We don't sell product. We're just trying to be good advisors, good consultants, good testers. So we do a lot of security assessments. That was mentioned at the top of the session here. Think of like the mother of all security home inspections for a business. Let's look at everything and just see where you're at and where you need to go and how long it's going to take and how much it's going to cost to get there, right? Pretty simple. Virtual CISO, most people in our market, which I would say is like less than 500 employees usually is kind of our clients. We work with like kind of small and middle-sized companies. Don't have people like us on staff full-time. So you're not going to find a chief security officer. You're certainly not going to be able to afford one. And even if you could, you're not going to keep them. So you kind of borrow one from us part-time. We just help you build a program and give you a sounding board and help you through those things. A lot of compliance work. So, if anybody comes to you and says, like, you need to be HIPAA compliant, whatever it is, doesn't matter. Like, at the never-ending list of acronyms that gets out there from a security perspective, we're good people to talk to about that. Pen testing, no, that's not my clicky tops working properly. That's usually ranges from, very light external technical testing, seeing how you look from the internet, to like attack simulation. How would you fare if the bad guys really came after you guns blazing? We're good at that. And then incident response, of course, which we're going to talk about today. So if something does happen, give us a call, we'll untangle it. Anybody who wants to get into this business or has a path where they want to learn more, CISSP is a certification that is pretty widely known in our industry, and we do a free class every year. We had like 10,000 students in it this last spring. It is on YouTube. It's absolutely free, no strings attached. So if anybody in your life is thinking, oh, I might like to be in IT or I might like to be in security, maybe let them know about that. We're growing very fast, as you can imagine. I can't grow fast enough. Like, this is, the demand for cybersecurity stuff is just amazing, right? So I'm doing everything that I can, but I need help, which is why I'm here. I'm asking for your help. A little bit about me. No Shave November, going on 6 years. My wife says the beard stays, so the beard stays. I was the 6th team member at FRSecure back in 2012. We're about 100 employees now. Is that about right, guys? 90, 100, something like that. And I do a lot of this kind of thing. I also do a lot of board and executive coaching. So if how to set expectations for a security team or for a security technology or a particular risk decision, right? Like, what's the language? How do you do that? I'm really good with people like that, like translating. I do have a wife and 2 boys. They're going to be 19 and 22 this year. So I'm an empty nester as of like a couple months ago. Couldn't be happier about it. What they don't tell you is that the bills don't stop. They just get bigger and less frequent, right? So instead of breaking toys, they break cars, right? So anybody who's in for that, heads up. I am a classically trained singer, so if you fall asleep, I will sing to you and make you come up here and sing with me. My mission: do it right, do it ethically. I got all the wonderful team behind me and everything, and I owe it to them to tell the truth and to always be setting an example for that, to do them justice and fulfill my own personal mission. So let's get into it. Let's start right off the bat as I stand in CCIG's office and take the insurance companies to the woodshed, right? The cyber insurance companies they're running amok. This is crazy stuff going on. So I'm not going to go through each and every one of these things like in detail, but the application process, as a security person, I'm telling you that they're not gathering information that is very germane to whether or not you're going to have an incident. The questions they're asking are covering their butt so that when you do have one, they don't have to pay it. That's how it's designed. It's very overt. When you talk to security people, tried and true security people, they look at an application for cyber insurance and go, what is this? This doesn't tell me anything that is germane to whether or not I'm a security risk, right? So that's a problem. Most major insurance have breach coaches. So if you do have a breach and you call your insurance company, you're going to get a hold of a breach coach who is usually not a security expert. They're lawyers, right? And they kind of project manage the breach from there. So your first point of contact, usually first and second point of contact at the insurance companies, at the carriers, are not security experts. So keep that in mind. Breach coaches have a stable of IR companies like mine that they call on when they need to engage experts. So most of the time when you call and have an incident, they're then going to make a call to Mandiant or FRSecure or whoever it is and say, hey, I have somebody who's in the middle of something. Can you get some security experts and technical people in here to help untangle it? But you can dictate who that is. Now, this is a plug, right? So work with me. But you can work with CCIG to say, like, hey, whatever the form is for my insurance company, get them to fill it out so that when I have an incident, I can call FRSecure and I don't have to work with whoever they're going to make me work with, because I want a relationship with somebody. I want to know who I'm going to work with. I want to know that they're going to be there, first of all, right? Cyber insurance does not cover all types of incidents and expenses, right? So CCIG folks in the room, this is your plug. Work with a broker that understands the difference, that understands exactly what you're trying to cover and to what amount, and goes through that process with you and doesn't just give you a blanket thing. CCIG is very, very good at this, and a lot of brokers aren't. Understanding exactly what you should be covered for, because some cyber insurance policies only cover physical stuff. If I have to replace laptops or servers or desktop computers or something like that, they don't cover all the mountain of consulting and recovery work that it takes to actually, get back to business after something happens. Does that make sense? Any questions on that? Okay. Important distinction. Terms of the policy are very, very important. It's not enough to just have a whole number of coverage, right? You got to have the right terms, and that's anybody here who gets insurance for anything understands that, right? It's like, what are my limits? What are the premiums? What does this cover? Who can I contact for this? How much latitude do I have? Like, it's all of those kinds of things. Very, very important, not just the rates. There's very little consistency. Anybody here filled out a cyber insurance application? You filled out 10 is really what you did, because no two are the same. It's not a standardized industry, right? They all want different things. They all have different questions, all for different reasons, you know, whatever it is. But it's kind of the Wild West. You know, they're still figuring this out. And my read on the situation is that the cyber insurance companies, or insurance companies in general, figured out there was this new product called cyber, and they went and they did this huge cash grab. They just underwrote everything they could for a few years, and then a couple of big breaches came out, and they got absolutely whacked. And now all their actuarial tables are out of whack, and now they're coming for their pound of flesh, right? That's why the rates are increasing. Anybody disagree with that? You're nodding your head. You're like, yeah, that's exactly what happened. Insurance companies are going to make money. Who knew? Okay, so I got 3 incidents I want to talk through here. Again, we'll go through these pretty quick, and there's nothing really technical in here, but there's interesting, you know, kind of things. And I did change names and dates and places, and you know, to protect the innocent here and some of the guilty, frankly. But I promise you won't be able to identify who these people are by what I'm saying. All right, so first off, we had a company with about 500 employees. They're a manufacturer. They were ransomware. Does anybody not know what ransomware is? This is where they lock all your stuff down, and if you want the keys to unlock it, you have to pay them. So they're not stealing anything. They're not deleting anything. They're not damaging anything. They basically just lock it, and if you want the key to get back into your house, you got to pay them. All right? They were partially kind of attacked at the time that we got to them. They were not a current client of ours, and they did not have an incident response plan in place, right? So this is the chain of events. They called us. We asked the question, do you have insurance? They said, yep. So we said, all right, call the insurance. The breach code says another firm will engage. So they say, yeah, we got a firm for you. They're going to engage. So call FRSecure, but they couldn't say when. We're like, yeah, we'll get back to you. That's basically what they said. While an active attack is going on, we'll get back to you. Customer said, nope, not good enough, asked us to step in, even if they had to pay out of pocket. We contained the ransomware, locked out the attackers, and fixed, you know, the root cause so that it couldn't happen again, at least in this way, within about a day, right? So it was kind of an overnight effort. By the next morning, we had everything back up. The breach coach calls back 24 hours later and says, okay, we're ready to go. We're like, yeah, we're done, right? Insurance doesn't want to cover the claim, but they do so in the end, right? We filed all the paperwork, everything was good. The total out-of-pocket cost for the client for this incident was about $15,000. Now let me explain this. When you hear the average cost of a breach, what are you hearing? Millions of dollars, $5 million. Company loses $3 million due to cyber attack, right? Let me tell you, that's pretty rare. Now we're seeing ransom. Like when they ask for ransom, that's still north of $1 million. But what you're out of pocket as a company, whatever your deductible is, not $1 million, right? So this is part of the security industry's way to scare you into, you have $1 million problem, so it's perfectly reasonable for you to spend at least $500,000 preventing it, right? No, that's not the real exposure, right? So don't get scared by the big amounts. This is actually pretty typical. That was just their out-of-pocket expense between the deductible and some other stuff that the insurance company wouldn't cover. That was it.
What about the 100 employees that couldn't work for 24 hours?
Well, that's the opportunity cost, I guess.
Okay, that's not it, obviously.
No, it's not in here. But, you know, it's like, yeah, it was a manufacturing plant that was down for like a day. Really overnight. I mean, there wasn't much going on. But yeah, that's a hard number to get to. It's like, how do you ask a company like, yeah, but how much did you really lose? You know what I mean? Some will tell you, some won't, some don't know. You know, good question though. So what's the lesson here? Insurance is not incident response. It's not the same thing. I know you've been told that, I know you've been sold that, but having an insurance policy is not a plan. Never is. Got to have your own plan. Okay, number 2, the man shuts us down. This one was weird, and I'll kind of explain what happened in the middle. So a little bigger company, professional services, they were fully ransomware. They were screwed, right? It's like no hope. All is lost, right? They were a current client of ours, and they did have an incident response plan. So this is another way of saying, like, we're not perfect. I can't sit here and guarantee you that if you work with FRSecure, you will not get ransomware. It may still happen. Probably will. Right? It happens. You can have the best laid plans of everything, and you still just get caught on the chin sometimes. Right? This client calls us, we say, yep, call the insurance company. The attacker botched the malware. This is kind of a weird thing. I'm not going to get into too many like technical specifics, but they installed it in a way that was not easy to uninstall. Right? Like it was just kind of a weird thing. So we're looking like, hey, yeah, so we got the keys and it's still not getting out of the network. Like these guys like customer service organizations. You can like negotiate with them and get support and escalate tickets. Like it's a real thing. So the backups are toast, so we can't restore from backup. The attacker starts going quiet for long periods of time, which is like, oh, this is starting to get weird now. Is he just cutting bait? Like what's going on? He hasn't been paid yet. But we're not going to release money until we know that we can get this malware out of the system. So the insurance company advises us to negotiate the price down, not us, but the client. And we did that, but the attacker instead raised the price and cut the timeline. So it's like, oh, you did have 3 days and $1 million. Now you have a day and a half and I need $2 million. Basically like, don't ever negotiate with me. We're like, okay, that's weird. Most of them will negotiate. This is a very rare exception that you can't negotiate with these people. Most of the time, it's just like, hey, our insurance limits are this. I can't pay you more than that. They're like, yeah, that's fair. Pay me what you can. Not kidding. They're actually pretty reasonable about it. The FBI is notified about the attack, and this is where it gets really weird, okay? They tell us, the insurance company tells us that the FBI says that we can't pay the ransom. I've never heard of this happening before, and I've never heard of it happening since. And I've talked to Special Agent Liz Lurkamp of the Central Region FBI Task Force on Cybersecurity, and she's like, yeah, we have a list of companies that are known terrorist organizations who do ransomware, and never in my tenure have I ever told anybody that they can't pay a ransom. So I don't know what happened here, but I'm telling you there's something really fishy, okay? So basically the insurance company says, yeah, we're not paying the ransom, you got to rebuild. So they had to go out of pocket and rebuild. So the ransomware was $700K. They ended up rebuilding the entire portion of their network that was ransomware. It cost them $250,000 to rebuild infrastructure and painstakingly move all the data over from the other stack and restore from paper and do everything that they could. In the end, the insurance company wouldn't cover the cost of rebuilding the network because it wasn't in their terms. So they were just out that money. $250,000. They were willing to pay a $700,000 ransom at the time. They weren't willing to pay the $250K to rebuild. Does that just make anybody need a shot? Anybody need a beer now? Right? Like this is kind of like wacky stuff that happens. Now, there's a lot of exceptions here, right? This isn't typical necessarily, but it is weird. It is out of your control. This is what we talk about when there's like all this stress and anxiety. It's like you never know how these things are going to go. So again, terms of insurance contracts matter, and all this could have been avoided if the backups weren't toast. When we say air gap the backups, that just means back up your systems as often as you're supposed to, whatever your risk tolerance is or whatever you've been advised to do. And whatever you have going on day to day in your backups, they cannot touch. That's what air gap means. Completely separate. So if you go to your IT leadership and you say, I need to know that the backups are air gapped, and they don't know what that means, it's a big problem. That's like 101 on how to defend yourself against this stuff. Does that make sense? Any questions? All right. This last one's a lot of fun. Very large healthcare organization. When I say critical access healthcare, that means that these people have an ICU and an emergency room. It's a real hospital, okay? They were ransomware, fully encrypted, so they were totally toast. They were a client of ours, and they did have an incident response plan in place. The client called our CEO at 2 a.m. Now, in your life, do you imagine that a healthcare organization of this size that has an incident response plan, do you think the first thing on their incident response plan is call the CEO of FRSecure on his cell phone? No, that's not what was supposed to happen at all, right? Here's the problem. They had an incident response plan only in digital form, but what happened to all the digital stuff on their network? They got encrypted, so they couldn't access their own incident response plan. So if you have an incident response plan, Tell somebody to print that out and throw it in a drawer, will you? Sometimes you need it on paper. Just one of those like tribal wisdom things that you learn when you do this enough, right? So, you know, our CEO's asleep, so he doesn't get the message till the next morning, gets our IR team involved, and off we go. The CIO and the CFO of this company disappear, call the insurance company, sign a contract with their provider, and the breach coach told them it wasn't optional, even though it was. It was like, nope, you can't work with FRSecure, even though they're already down the path. You have to work with our provider, otherwise we won't pay for it, and that was factually false. What does this tell you about the relationship between breach coaches and incident response teams? It's pay to play. Do you want your incident response team working for you or for your insurance company? That's what question that breeds. If you don't care, you trust your insurance company, God bless you if you do. But it's important to have your own relationship, and it's important to know that your insurance company knows that that relationship is what it is, right? The entire network is encrypted, the attacker goes silent, backups aren't an option. 2.5 weeks later at a critical access hospital, they still don't have phones. So this was a bomb and run. He dropped this, something got muddled, they didn't pay the ransom, they're just screwed. They just had to redo it. The board called an emergency session and authorized a $1 million 6-month sprint to rebuild the network, to get them back on. I'm not kidding, they went back to like pagers, so they can call nurses and doctors in. I know that the New York Times broke the story. I know for a fact that people died because of this. I know it. When nurses can't get called in, when they can't do their rounds, when they can't document things properly, when all those medical devices can't run on the network, when they can't update things, when they can't distribute medication, people die. This isn't theoretical. When we get this wrong, people get hurt, for real. That's why I care about it so much. That's why I flew all the way here from Minnesota to talk to you about it. It's a big deal. They did not have the personnel or the expertise or the partnerships to do that project, and it's still ongoing, almost a year later. They don't have all their capabilities back. So the lesson, prevention and preparation, way cheaper than recovery. The stuff that we have been asking them to do, the fundamental, foundational, no-nonsense, no-brainer things, they just kind of let slide. For whatever reason, they had the reasons. Everybody has budget concerns and time concerns, and you're not in business to secure information. But everybody asks, what's the cost? What if I don't do this? This is the most pointed example I can give you. It's a very large organization, but man, a lot at stake. They didn't understand the risk of not having their act together. And that's on the board. That's on the executive team, right? That's on the ownership. That's on management. Should have known. This should never have happened. Now, this is the worst of the worst possible example I could ever have shown you, right? This is as bad as it gets. This is nuclear. And I'm telling you, it's not going to happen to you. Probably. Okay, a few things about incident response. Incident response take work. They're not sexy. It's not easy. You can't Google incident response plan and put your logo on it, right? These things are, they take time, they take work, right? I always joke there's only 20 people on planet Earth who actually enjoy writing security policies. They all work at FRSecure. I found them, right? So if you don't want to do this, there are experts out there that are very happy to help you. And there's a lot of cool starting places. You want FRSecure's incident response template? You can have it for free. We don't gate it. You don't have to do anything to it. Just go download it off our website. I promise it's not a virus. Incident response plans should cover more than IT, right? This is the other thing too. Not all attacks are cyber attacks. Not all outages are because of criminals, right? You got to take these things into account. There's physical environment you have to take into account. There's people, right? What do we like about computers? They only do what we tell them to do. Are users that way? Computers are digital. That's why we love them. Users are analog. That's why they're a pain from a security perspective. They have mood swings. They have good days. They have bad days. What they'll click on today, they won't click on tomorrow, right? And incident response planning and preparation is almost solely centered on people, because that's usually what breaks down. It's not the tech. Incident response plan should be tested. Do a tabletop. What if this happened? What if somebody in HR just emailed a spreadsheet of all of our social security numbers to a third party and they don't know who it is? Go. It can be that simple. It doesn't have to be anything over-engineered, right? But test it. See how it works. See if your plan holds up to that kind of logic. Run it through its paces. We got all kinds of articles and stuff like that. You can steal them. Go ahead. It's fine. Have your own relationship with an IR team. I kind of beat that one to death. A good plan is your plan, not mine or anybody else's. And again, cyber insurance is not a plan. It's just not. Any questions about that? Okay. Some stats. Ford's pretty reliable. I'm not going to go through all these. The one that I like the most is this one. 30% of respondents said that budgets aren't sufficient to ensure proper cybersecurity. Means everybody's concerned about this problem and nobody has money for it. Sound familiar? So how much money should you be spending on your cybersecurity? I have no idea. Right? This is why we're talking about risk assessment. This is why you quantify the problem. It's not enough to know just where you have gaps. You also have to know how much you should care about them. Right? Security people are great at suggesting $50 fixes for $5 problems. I'll give you an example. Work at a law firm. They have 25 employees. They have the same 25 employees for 20 years. It's a family place. Nobody's quit. Nobody's been hired. Nobody's left. Nobody's been fired. Nothing. So when we get to the section in our assessment about onboarding and offboarding procedures, right? Do you take keys? Did you shut their access off? Did you disable their email? Did you do all that kind of stuff? How important is it for that law firm to have that real tight? Not at all. So why are they spending any more than 5 minutes on it? Right? That's the kind of thing. It needs to be your assessment. How much money should you spend? I bet you don't even know. You got to figure out what's important to you. You got to put the risk into context, right? What's the likelihood something bad's going to happen, and how impactful would it be if it did happen? And then what can you do about it? You can't fix everything overnight. So if you're short a budget, what can you do? The name of the game here is don't be low-hanging fruit. You can't be perfect. You're not going to fix everything. But if you're just annoying enough, they'll move on. The bad guys won't mess with you. They got low-hanging fruit. They're going to spend their time going through somebody who actually, has a properly configured firewall, whereas users who won't click on things, right? They'll just move on. It's a never-ending list of other businesses that'll fall for it easier. So there's no need to go super crazy with this. Just understand where you are, where you should be, how long it's going to take, what's going to cost to get there. At least then you'll know what the most important next thing you should be working on. That make sense? All right. This is my other one. 32% haven't changed their cybersecurity plan since the pandemic were forced remote and hybrid operations. I have a problem with that one because a lot of businesses were just like, yeah, but they're all coming back. Now, it's a different risk. You might lose some employees or something like that, but this one I thought was kind of a red herring. It's like, yeah, not every business can work from home. I think that'll change over time. Questions? Anything I can answer about anything. Doesn't have to be about incidents or anything else.
What's the most common reason that clients come to FRSecure? Is it because they've experienced a breach or a hack, or they're trying to get ahead and be preventable?
Neither. 80% of spending in the cybersecurity industry is have to, right? So as much as I would love that if everybody was just altruistic and decided, yeah, I should have good security, that'd be great. I think that'd be a great humanitarian thing to do. The reality is that most people come to us because they say, hey, so I just went to go renew my biggest contract with my biggest client, and they're not going to renew unless I show them an acceptable use policy. What is that? I can't do that unless I've done a pen test or an assessment or I get a SOC 2 report or whatever it is, right? They're coming to us with, it has to be done. I have to do something. I might as well, get this figured out because I'm running out of excuses. That makes any sense? So it's have to, or it's I have to be HIPAA compliant. The government's hassling me about something. My clients are hassling me about something. Or, yeah, frankly, our best clients are the ones who had a breach and never want it to happen again, right? They're very motivated to make changes and not spend money, but it's just kind of like, does the CEO of the company really need access to every system and have administrator access to everything to be able to change whatever they want anytime? That's a hard thing to do. You built this company from the ground up with your own two hands, and now you're telling me I can't access my accounting system? Pound sand, But if you're willing to say like, yeah, it's probably not a good idea that one person have access to all these systems, and because if I got my password, taken, then it's all is lost kind of thing. You know what I mean? Those are the changes that recently breached clients are willing to make. Yep.
John, I know Mike is here as well. Could you guys spend a few minutes talking about what a client relationship looks like? So once somebody engages you to do an assessment, maybe if you could talk about it from your perspective, Mike, maybe if you could chime in from your perspective, but even, John, if you could talk a little bit about the philosophy of a score, what that
sure.
means. I think that way people will understand, like, hey, if we get to work with you guys, what do we get?
Yeah. Yeah, you want to kick this off, or you want me to
Sure.
venture an answer?
Well, I mean, for us, it was we knew we needed to make some changes. Sorry, I'm being redirected. We were in a good spot with a lot of our technology. We knew we were following best practices. Our backups were good, things like that. But we wanted the assessment done. To your point of trying to get a tangible, scope of where we're at, and so that's why we engaged with FRSecure and went through the process of having that assessment done.
Yeah, there's a peace of mind in having somebody who has like really no stake in your business. And I mentioned that we don't sell product, so it's like I'm not going to tell you your firewall sucks and then try to sell you one. You know what I mean? Like, it's kind of nice, but to have somebody independent that can help you understand, like, all right, what is that laundry list of things that I'm supposed to be doing, and how can I quantify how much that matters? So we talked about that a lot, right? So it's not just where do you have gaps, it's also how much does it matter? So our process, we put everything on the same scale as a credit score. So it's like 300, 850. So, if you don't know anything about tech, you don't know anything about gaps or gap analysis or standards or any of the other, alphabet soup of stuff I can throw at you, it's just kind of like, if I told you your credit score is a 400, how would you feel about that? Terrible, right? That's awful. If I told you your security score on the same scale as a 400, would that at least give you some kind of urgency? Like, hey, we got some work to do. But if I told you it was like a 680, 700, especially if I told you that other companies like yours are about there, you might feel pretty good about that. That's okay. Just puts it on a spectrum, makes it a little easier to understand. Especially if you don't speak this language every day, it's like, I get that. In 5 seconds, I understand where my security program's at, and I feel good or not about it. That's kind of the end goal.
And I think the other thing that benefited us is when we got that report back is it was broken down into manageable pieces. The assessment came back and like, you should work on these first. We'll set up these in a quarterly basis, and hopefully by the end of the year, this is where we think you should be.
Yeah.
And it was digestible. We could go through it like, okay, we can get that one taken off, got that one knocked off, things like that. So the way that the assessment was laid out and digestible made it a lot easier for internal IT people or people that might not really know what to do with all that. It's broken down where you can really see it and attack the problem. So that was helpful.
Yeah, the ability. So FRSecure is known for having a bunch of security experts, right? That's kind of what we're known for. Anybody who has worked with us long enough, like, wow, they have a great team. Like, that's great, but it's not enough to be smart, right? And it's not enough to just point out problems and wish people luck, right? So we listen to our clients and they say, hey, we love the assessment. This is great. We got all this data. Now what?
Yeah.
Like, you kind of brought me to the cliff and you left me there. What am I supposed to do with all this? So it's like, all right, well, for instance, like Mike's a busy guy. So if he's like, look, I got 4 hours a month I can give you on this project that only I can do. We're not getting a 40-hour project done in the first quarter, right? So how do you project plan that out? How do you take those inputs of who has time and what vendors do I have and how much money can I spend and, what are my expectations and project plan it out? So at least the next couple of years of your security life are predictable in kind of 90-day chunks, right? It just makes it a part of doing business. It's just like, yep, it's a project, we're working on it. When it's done, then we'll reassess next year, see how everything worked out and what new threats we got to be aware of or whatever. It just normalizes it as a risk management practice instead of like this mystical, security, hoodoo, IT stuff. It just simplifies it. That's kind of what we're after.
And I think that's another good point is it's not do the assessment and take it in. You've done it, you've checked the box off, and you can forget about it. It's something you got to work on, and now you've got a baseline, and coming back a year later or whenever it's appropriate, and do that same assessment again, and really tangibly see where you've made some improvements, where your score is now, things like that.
Yeah, I think one of my favorite statistics is if you just keep Microsoft like up to date, You know that button you click that says update later, update tomorrow, update later, update. Like if you just hit it once, just say like, yeah, okay, let's update it. Like let's do it. We'll go through the restart and do that. You're automatically immune to like 80% of known vulnerabilities to Microsoft, like automatically, right? But how often do you have to do that? It's like once every couple months. I think they push a patch, right? They push that out where you got to update your computer and restart it and everything. Well, if you don't do that for a year, right, you're basically wide open. So it's stuff like that. It's like, how do we just make that more programmatic? How do we get users to not hit the not now button?
Right.
You know, do we train them? Do we take it out of their hands and just force it? Hey, when you reboot, I don't care if you, what's going on. The moment you shut this thing down, it's going to update every time. Like there's technology tools for that. You know, it's figuring that stuff out and bringing somebody to the table with some wisdom to bear on like, hey, if you got a particularly, frankly, difficult user group, salespeople, right? Then, you know, you're going to have to get a little more forward with, you know, how you're doing things for them and not relying on them to always provide an input. You know, that's a part of it, right? You got to talk through those things. Every organization's a little different.
Yeah, I can't agree more. I mean, just going through IT and just thinking about industry best practices from an IT standpoint. So running your Windows updates, running your Adobe Reader updates, running your antivirus software, making sure it's up to date. There's some automation behind those things, but it still requires that person to reboot the machine to put those fixes into place. So I like one of the other things we were talking about earlier was the backups and testing your backups.
Yep.
You know, back up, you see the little green checkbox, you're like, got it. But after a couple months when you need that file and you go back and you're like, I don't got it. So testing those backups, you know, when you do a backup, just pull it off into a drive and open it up, make sure that they're intact. I mean, things happen. So some of the examples you gave, the backup. So.
Well, you've been doing this a while too, and it's like 95% of this stuff is just like good IT hygiene stuff. Stuff we all know we should have been doing. You know what I mean? It's just finally kind of getting over the hump and saying, oh, okay, I guess we really got to do the thing now. We should change our passwords more than once every 5 years. Like, all right, you know. But a lot of it too is just, you know, making small like stroke of the pen decisions on who can have access to what. Like it doesn't have to cost you any real money to automate these things or these big technology tools. A lot of times you just got to sit in a room and make the decision. Like, yep, you know, as a business owner, as a leader, as a whatever, it's like, hey, this is how we do things and it's documented now. Roll it out, let everybody know, make sure you're enforcing it. It's no different than if somebody wasn't clocking in and clocking out every day on the production floor, whatever it is. Like it's a policy. It's just something you gotta sit in a room and do. Costs you nothing. You just gotta make the decision. But it has to be presented to you. If you're not a security person, who in this room is not a security person or an IT person, right? It's like, it needs to be presented to you in a way that you understand. I think that's a reasonable expectation, right, of the security community and the IT community, right? This idea of like, yeah, I can't go to the boss and have a technical conversation because my boss isn't technical. I'm not going to ask him to go watch 50 YouTube videos before I can have a conversation with him. Like, this is one of those be brief, be correct, and be gone, you know, kind of like, just give it to me straight. What do you need me to do, you know?
Yeah.
So enabling those conversations is really important.
Absolutely.
And Mike, will you talk a little bit about once we engaged with FRSecure, how long did it take to get the assessment? How onerous was it on you to provide that information? Maybe just give a little flavor of what that looks like.
Yeah, so the process was a couple months. Engaging with FRSecure, we did some technical background, got some documents that we filled out, kind of laid out what our network looked like, what we were doing, you know, had some engagement with online, we had some data in-house, just so they knew what they were looking for, what the scope of that project would entail. So they ran a scan. They had a system that they utilized to kind of go through the soup to nuts, if you will, of the technical side of what access points are available, what access points are vulnerability. So they did that scan, took that back, and analyzed all of that. While that was happening, we did in-person interviews with our management team, with HR, with our CFO, with myself and our other IT members, and just really went through a conversation of, so how do you get into the server room? What time do the doors lock? Where are cameras located? Can people log in to their computers from home? Just all those conversations that really get into the administrative part and some of the physical, not necessarily the technical part on that aspect, but just kind of understanding the operations and things like that. Do we have documentation in place on our work from home policy? Do we have documentation in place on our password changing policy? Do we allow people to connect to unsecure Wi-Fi? All those kind of questions start to boil up and really paint a picture of what the assessment's there to help accomplish. After that, it took a couple weeks to have a really thorough, detailed write-up of the assessment. The assessment was provided in a, oh my gosh, pages upon pages, and every single detail was laid out. But they also provided a management or an executive briefing. To your point earlier, just tell me what we need to do, something that we could hand off to the CEO or the ownership and say, here's a high-level plan of what's going on with our assessment. So that was huge.
Yeah, that's we got that pretty early on, right? IT people always want the detail,
Right.
Right?
Yeah,
So
have to
give
have
me
the
give me the 200-page reference manual. Give me everything. I want to know how you came to your conclusions.
searchable.
What,
It's gotta
what
be
tools
searchable.
you used. I want to know like all the detail. The CEO just wants like, all right, so if I had to do like 5 things, what are they?
Right.
Like, all right, well, here's your report.
Yep.
You know, it's like
And-
that's perfect.
And it was great. We got that, and it was an order of not necessarily the most inexpensive or the easiest, but what was most critical to attack first.
Yeah.
And this is what we need to attack first. After that's checked off, we can go here, and we just punch through the list. That was awesome. So,
Yeah.
awesome.
Before you guys wrap up, can you talk about Project Hyphy?
Oh yeah. So we got our table back there. We got some water bottles and some swag and some other cool stuff. Buyer's guides. We got Evan's book. Evan's our CEO, our founder, brilliant information security guy. If you have a security or IT person in your life and they need to go, like, that's a great book. Like, you should definitely grab one. But Project High Fee, part of our mission of fixing the industry, frankly, is that there's a whole lot of people out there who cannot afford to work with us. They just can't. They don't have budget. They're not going to hire consultants. They're not going to hire testers, but they still have, think nonprofits, think schools, think all kinds of folks, right? So we're like, well, how do we help them? Now, a lot of what we do initially with organizations and assessments is what we call reconnaissance. It's basically going on the internet and finding all your dirty laundry, right? What could I use as a pretext to an attack? Like, what can I find out about you that might be useful if I were to attack you? And we call that threat hunting, okay? So we stood up an organization. It's basically our technical guys in their free time are doing free threat hunting for anybody who wants it. I don't care if you're a Fortune 500 company or a local nonprofit down the street, whatever it is, you just get in queue, and when you come up and these guys have time, they're going to do threat hunting on your organization and tell you, like, hey, here's some of the dirty laundry out there. Here's how you deal with it. If there's help that you need, we'll point you in the right direction. If it's, free stuff, if it's tools, if it's whatever, it's just a way for us to give back. We do have, frankly, an obscene amount of expertise, and they're all very caring and very, very good people, and this is their way of giving back. So there's a flyer kind of thing that we have with the QR code that you can do. If you want information or you want a meeting with somebody like me or one of our security experts, we have that. This is my contact information. I'm very responsive. Please call me. Please email me. Very happy to do that. And then incident response template. If you want that, again, it's totally free. Just text us. We'll send it right to you. We have all kinds of policy templates, too. If you're just like, I got to do policies and I don't want to do it, then give us a call. We'll give you all our templates. And if you still don't want to do it, then we'll do it for you.
Awesome, John. And just for everybody, we know there are a lot of people that are logged in online. This will be available for everybody so that you can get this information, get John's information. CCIG, we've white labeled a program with FRSecure to kind of keep it streamlined and very simple for all of our clients and prospects. But John, I think this has been some great information for us today. And you said it. I think a lot of people, hey, I'll get to it tomorrow. Gosh, this seems expensive. Nothing has happened. And we can't urge you, more to get on it, work with FRSecure, understand where the vulnerabilities are, get those cleaned up, because we're just going to see this become more and more pervasive. So thanks for coming all the way out from Minnesota, and thanks for everybody for coming in. Thanks for everybody online. More information to come, but hopefully this has been helpful. And thanks, John. Appreciate it.
Hey, thanks. Appreciate it.